and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you are watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. Chicago-born Elias Rodriguez is charged with first-degree murder after allegedly killing 2 Israeli embassy staff in D.C. in what officials call an anti-Semitic attack. Prosecutors say he opened fire outside a Jewish event attended by diplomats and young professionals. Iran and the U.S. head for Rome for fresh talks on Tehran's nuclear program, but deep divisions over uranium enrichment threaten a deal. Iran warns it will hold Washington responsible for any Israeli strike on its nuclear sites as regional tensions simmer. Homeland Chief Kristi Noem terminates Harvard's student visa program, accusing the university of anti-Semitism and Chinese Communist Party ties. Harvard calls the move illegal and vows to defend its foreign students, as Noem warns other universities may be next. Under intense international condemnation, Israel allows 107 aid trucks into Gaza after a 12-week blockade. The trucks carrying food, flour, and medical supplies mark a crucial but limited step in easing a humanitarian crisis. Israel says it shot down 2 missiles fired by Yemen's Houthis, triggering sirens nationwide, including in Jerusalem and the West Bank. The Houthis claim they targeted Ben Gurion Airport and Tel Aviv with missiles and drones in a fresh escalation. China threatens a resolute response if the Philippines continues what it calls provocations in the South China Sea. Beijing defends its action as legitimate and accuses the U.S. of using Manila to still regional trouble. A small plane slammed into a military housing area in San Diego early Thursday, killing 2 and injuring 8, while damaging homes and cars. The crash hit Tierra Santa neighborhood just east of Montgomery, Gibbs Airport around 3:45 a.m. local time. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu says a new domestic intelligence chief must be named as soon as possible amid a probe into his advisors. He stresses nominee David Zini will have no role in the ongoing investigation into alleged Qatari influence. A Chicago-born man, Elias Rodriguez, was arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder in the fatal shooting of 2 Israeli embassy employees in Washington, D.C. Rodriguez, who claimed responsibility for the killings, told police he acted for Palestine and was heard chanting "Free Palestine" after his arrest. Federal prosecutors have described the case as death penalty eligible, condemning the attack as an act of anti-Semitism. Interim U.S. Attorney Jenny Pirro addressed the severity of the case as she stated that her office is investigating the shooting as a hate crime and a crime of terrorism in a news briefing. Let's listen in to what she said.
31-year-old Elias Rodriguez of Chicago, Illinois, is now charged by complaint after his initial appearance before U.S. Magistrate Judge Matthew Sharbaugh with the following: murder in the first degree for the murder of 30-year-old Yaron Levshinsky, a foreign official and official guest of the United States. Mr. Levshinsky was here on official business for the State of Israel. The defendant Rodriguez is also charged with 2 counts of murder in the first degree for both Yaron Levshinsky along with 26-year-old Sarah Lynn Milgram of Kansas. In addition, there are several felony firearms charges for discharging a firearm in the middle of a violent crime and for causing the death of an individual through the use of that firearm.
The White House press secretary also shared the administration's deep sorrow and outrage over the tragic killings. She echoed President Trump's sentiments, reaffirming that the full force of the law would be brought to bear on the perpetrator. Let's listen in to what she had to say.
The evil of anti-Semitism must be eradicated from our society. I spoke to the Attorney General this morning. The Department of Justice will be prosecuting the perpetrator responsible for this to the fullest extent of the law. Hatred has no place in the United States of America under President Donald Trump. Everyone here at the White House is praying for the victims' friends and families during this unimaginable.
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney expressed being devastated and appalled by the tragic killing of 2 Israeli embassy staff members in Washington. Meanwhile, Qatar, a key mediator in the Israeli-Hamas conflict, has also condemned the attack. In a statement, the Qatari Foreign Ministry denounced the shooting outside the Jewish Museum. The ministry extended the state's condolences to the victims' families and reaffirmed Qatar's rejection of violence in all its forms. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has strongly condemned the horrific killing. Netanyahu also took the opportunity to thank President Trump for his unwavering support of Israel in the wake of this tragedy. Beijing condemned the U.S. move to ban Harvard from enrolling foreign students, calling it political. China's foreign ministry said the action damages U.S. global credibility. Spokeswoman Mao Ning urged Washington to keep education free from politics. Let's listen in to what Chinese foreign ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning had to say.
中美教育合作是互利的，中方一贯反对将教育合作政治化，美方有关做法只会损害美国的形象和国际信誉。
This comes as the Trump administration has revoked Harvard University's right to enroll foreign students, affecting over a quarter of its annual intake and escalating tensions with the prestigious Ivy League institution. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem announced the immediate withdrawal of Harvard's Student and Exchange Visitor Program certification, the system permitting international students to study in the U.S. This move follows Harvard's refusal to comply with government's demands for oversight on admissions and hiring amid President Trump's accusations that the university fosters anti-Semitism, supports pro-Hamas views, and promotes divisive woke policies. Trump had previously warned of such action if Harvard resisted government supervision. Harvard enrolled more than 27% of foreign students in the 2024 to 2025 academic year. Noem stated that maintaining foreign student enrollment is a privilege contingent on compliance with Department of Home Security regulations. Harvard has yet to respond to requests for comment. Meanwhile, Kristi Noem says the Trump administration is considering similar actions against other universities after blocking Harvard from enrolling foreign students. She made the remarks in a Fox News interview, signaling a broader crackdown on institutions resisting federal oversight. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff is traveling to Rome today for the 5th round of talks with Iranian officials over Tehran's nuclear program. A source said Witkoff will be joined by State Department official Michael Anton. The discussions expected to start at 11 a.m. GMT. The talk will be both direct and indirect, come amid tensions over uranium enrichment. Iran's top diplomat Araghchi said yesterday that deep divisions remain with the U.S. ahead of its nuclear talks, warning no agreement is possible if Washington demands Iran halt uranium enrichment. Let's listen in to what Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has said.
هنوز اختلافات بنیانی بین ما وجود داره. طرف آمریکایی همونطور که خودشون گفتن در مصاحبات و گفته‌هاشون اصولاً به غنیسازی در ایران اعتقادی ندارن و معتقدن که غنیسازی باید به طور کامل متوقف بشه. اگر این هدفشون هست توافقی در کار نخواهد بود. من این رو به صراحت عرض میکنم. اگر بخواهند که حق مردم ایران برای استفاده صلح‌آمیز از انرژی هسته‌ای رو از ما بگیرن، ما به هیچ وجه توافقی نخواهیم داشت. جمهوری اسلامی ایران اگر میخواست سراغ سلاح هسته‌ای
Meanwhile, President Donald Trump spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday with the White House, saying negotiations with Iran are moving in the right direction. Witkoff reiterated that any deal must include a ban on uranium enrichment, a stance Tehran rejects. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei called U.S. demands excessive and outrageous, expressing doubt over the success of the talks. The discussions followed the recent killings of 2 Israeli embassy staffers in Washington. Listen to what White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt has said.
The president spoke to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today. They had a productive discussion. They discussed many things, including, of course, the tragic shooting that took place here in Washington, D.C. last night. But they also did talk about a potential deal with Iran, which the president believes is moving along in the right direction. And as the president told me, and he's told all of you, this deal with Iran could end in 2 ways. It could end in a very positive diplomatic solution, or it could end in a very negative situation for Iran. So that's why these talks are taking place later this week.
We have Thomas Porteous, anchor and correspondent, joining us live from New Delhi. Thomas, Arakshi has said no deal is possible without enrichment rights. Is this a red line that Iran will most likely stick to? Tom, Arakshi has said that no deal is possible without enrichment rights. Is this a red line that Iran is going to stick by?
Well, yes, thank you, Asuma. This is the 5th round of talks between the US and Iran, something a couple of months ago wouldn't have seemed possible. The 2 adversaries, which are the US and Iran, are negotiating a treaty in order for Iran to stop its uranium enrichment. Now, Iran said enrichment is a red line stopping enrichment is a red line that it will not cross. It maintains the idea that its uranium enrichment program is friendly and they are not developing a nuclear weapon. However, the US wants this to stop entirely. We've had comments from Donald Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, both saying that if Iran does not agree to completely halting its uranium enrichment to weapons grade, there is no deal. And so what we will see is how these talks develop. Both sides have said that they are doing well, but the matter remains this red line of the fact that are Iran going to be allowed to enrich their uranium or not?
You've already kind of touched down on this, but what's the stake for the US if the talks collapse politically and economically and militarily?
Well, Asuma, the stakes in the region are very, very high. Iran is a power that doesn't yet have a nuclear weapon and yet supports proxies like Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. And so certainly in the region, the close time ally to the United States, that which is Israel, have been widely against Iran developing a nuclear weapon. We've seen Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speak out about the development of nuclear weapons by Iran, by Tehran. And we've even seen Israel strike some of these weapons, these uranium enrichment bases. But also, the United States likes to win in its diplomacy. If they do not reach this deal, then they will be seen as less credible diplomatic makers. Trump actually withdrew from the 2011 treaty, which let Iran enrich uranium and remove sanctions. Trump then imposed them once again. So that's the bargaining chip that the United States has in these talks, of those sanctions. And Iran is certainly suffering economically right now. And so we're kind of at a stalemate here. As you said previously, enrichment is the key, and both sides have drawn that red line and said that they will not cross it. But we'll have to see how these talks develop. We've got US Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff from the United States negotiating, and we've also got for the United States, and we've got Abbas Araghchi, who is Iran's top diplomat, foreign minister. And so Not much has been revealed about these talks, but over the coming weeks we will see what this round will bring.
Thank you so much, Thomas Porteous, for sharing that insight. As we move on to our next story, Gaza's Civil Defense Agency has said that Israel's strikes killed 16 people today across the territory. Dozens of people have also been wounded in the strikes, which mainly hit the center and the south of the territory. Meanwhile, for the first time in more than 2 months, humanitarian aid is trickling back into Gaza, but United Nations officials warn the limited supplies nowhere near enough to avert the deepening humanitarian catastrophe. Over 90 trucks carrying flour, baby supplements, and other basics entered southern Gaza, the first aid delivery since Israel imposed a total blockade on March 2nd. Officials say more trucks are expected today, but aid agencies warn that volume and access remain insufficient. The United Nations says 80% of Gaza is now under evacuation orders or militarized zones, pushing millions into overcrowded shelters amidst severe shortages of food, clean water, medicine, and fuel. The World Health Organization has said that Gaza's health system is at breaking point. The head of the World Health Organization has made an emotional plea for Israel to show mercy, saying peace is in Israel's own interest. WHO officials report that only 19 of Gaza's 36 hospitals remain operational, most under extreme conditions. Multiple facilities have been struck or forced to shut down in recent days. Multiple deaths have been reported following a fearful plane crash in a San Diego neighborhood, with at least 6 fatalities reported. Through the exact death toll has not been confirmed. The Cessna 550 crashed into a residential area, causing massive destruction. Debris from the wreckage hit at least 10 homes, while vehicles lining the street were engulfed in flames. The crash, which occurred in a neighborhood home to military families, sent burning jet fuel across the area. San Diego Fire Department Assistant Chief Dan Eddy reported that one house had been severely damaged, but fortunately no one on the ground suffered serious injuries. Authorities are still working to determine the full scope of this incident. Let's listen in to what he has said.
Accurate that multiple people believe we have multiple fatalities. From what we've found so far and seen, we do believe we have multiple fatalities, but we're going to have to go through and take our time and ensure that exactly what we have.
Neighbors made a harrowing escape from flames early Thursday after a plane crashed into the Murphy Canyon military housing community. Residents rushed door to door. Local officials praised the community's swift response during the crisis. The cause of the crash remains under investigation. Let us listen to what the public information officer from the emergency services had to say.
Entonces, poquito antes de las 4 de la mañana fue cuando recibimos la llamada de lo que ocurrió aquí. Entonces, al llegar los bomberos, los rescatistas encontraron el impacto aquí de la avioneta en la casa y en varios vehículos aquí por la calle. Estaban todos en fuego, las llamas y el olor al combustible, como estás viendo.
The crash, which tragically claimed the lives of the music talent agent and several others on the flight, sent shockwaves through the neighborhood of U.S. Navy-owned housing. The impact caused a home to burst into flames, with half a dozen vehicles also igniting. Let us listen to a resident's account of what happened that night.
Yeah, at first I thought, I wasn't sure. The initial one, I'm like, is there a bomb? Something happened, and then there was one initially, and I'm like, is that a gunshot? And then once it just started happening one after another, there was about maybe 4 to 5 when I was upstairs. And by the time I came down here, I wasn't keeping count. You were just hearing random explosions. And now that I see, it was the cars exploding. So.
We now move to Middle East. An Israeli airstrike has hit a building in southern Lebanon after Israel's military warned residents to evacuate areas connected to Hezbollah. Despite a ceasefire agreement reached last November to halt over a year of hostilities, Israel has continued its airstrikes on Lebanon. While the Israeli military did not confirm the airstrike on the southern town of Toul, it reported carrying out multiple attacks on Hezbollah targets, including the killing of one militant. Lebanon's national news agency reported that Israel struck a building in Toul, where the military had issued an evacuation warning for people living within a 500-meter radius, indicating the area's connection to Hezbollah. Israel's warning, broadcasted in Arabic, urged residents to evacuate immediately, citing nearby Hezbollah facilities. No immediate reports of casualties have emerged from the strike in Toul. In a separate operation, the Israeli military said it had targeted and eliminated a Hezbollah militant from the Radwan force in the nearby Rabel Talathin area, located about 17 kilometers southeast of Toul. The new national news agency reported a martyr from another airstrike in the same region, but did not specify their identity. Additionally, Israel's forces struck several Hezbollah military sites, including weapons storage and rocket launchers in the Bekaa Valley and southern Lebanon. The military insists these actions are a response to violations of the November ceasefire, which called for Hezbollah to withdraw north of the Litani River and dismantle military infrastructure in the south. Israel, in turn, was expected to pull out its troops, although it has maintained forces in 5 areas it considers strategic. Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam condemned the Israeli airstrikes, calling them repeated aggressions against Lebanon at a critical moment, as municipal elections are set to take place in the south. Despite the surge in Israeli strikes, Hezbollah leader Naim Qassem urged supporters to go out and vote, aiming for a resounding victory in the upcoming elections. And we stay in the Middle East. Israel's military says it intercepted 2 missiles fired from Yemen, as sirens sounded across the country, including in Jerusalem and the West Bank. Houthi military spokesperson claimed responsibility, saying the group launched a ballistic missile towards Israel's Ben Gurion airport and 2 drones aimed at the Tel Aviv area. The Houthis vow to continue targeting Israel. They say their attacks are in solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza.
نفذت القوة الصاروخية في القوات المسلحة اليمنية عملية عسكرية نوعية استهدفت مطار اللد المسمى إسرائيليا مطار بن غوريون في منطقة يافا المحتلة، وذلك بصاروخ باليستي فرط صوتي، وقد حقق الصاروخ هدفه بنجاح بفضل الله، وأجبر ملايين الصهاينة المحتلين على الهروع إلى الملاجئ ووقف حركة الملاحة في المطار، وأجبر الرحلات المتجهة إلى المطار على إعادة أدراجها باتجاه الوجهات التي قدمت منها، وتعد هذه العملية هي الثانية.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said his country is ready to hold the next round of talks to end the war as soon as possible, but adds that Russia lacks a similar level of readiness. Also, Zelensky announced that he held a meeting to prepare for a 1,000-for-1,000 prisoner exchange with Russia. Let's listen in to what Zelensky had to say regarding future talks to end this conflict with Russia.
Також ми обговорили військову основу дипломатії, наступної технічної зустрічі. Ми працюємо, щоб зустріч відбулася якнайшвидше. Наш український інтерес – не затягувати війну, але бути готовими до будь-якого розвитку ситуації. Світові очевидно, що саме Росія винна, що війна досі триває. Україна готова до максимально швидких кроків, реального припинення вогню і встановлення нової архітектури безпеки.
Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin claims he has ordered the military to create a security buffer zone along Russia's border with Ukraine. Putin says the zone would stretch across the Kursk, Bryansk, and Belgorod regions. a move that Ukraine's foreign ministry calls further proof that Russia is not interested in peace. Ukrainian officials say the buffer zone should be confined to Russian territory and that Putin's statements undermine efforts to achieve a ceasefire. U.S. trade negotiators are urging the European Union to make unilateral tariff reductions on U.S. goods, warning that without such concessions, progress in ongoing trade talks will be stalled. According to a report by the Financial Times, U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer is reportedly preparing to tell European Trade Commissioner Maros Sefcovic that the EU's recent explanatory note does not meet U.S. expectations. Sources tell the Financial Times that the note, shared as part of ongoing talks, falls short of the criteria set by the U.S. While the European Union has been advocating for a jointly agreed framework to guide the negotiations, significant differences between the two sides remain complicating the process. In March, the U.S. imposed a 25% tariff on EU cars, steel and aluminum, followed by a 20% tariff on other EU goods in April. The U.S. later reduced the 20% rate by half, but set a deadline of July 8th for a more comprehensive tariff deal, allowing a 90-day window for talks to take shape. In response, the EU suspended its own retaliatory tariff plans on certain U.S. goods and proposed eliminating tariffs on all industrial goods from both sides. As of now, neither the European Commission nor the U.S. Trade Representative's Office has commented on the latest developments. G7 finance leaders have said that economic policy uncertainty has declined from its peak. According to a joint statement released after a three-day gathering in Canada, Banff, the statement also stressed the group's commitment to working together to achieve further progress. TIFF Tiff McClain, Governor of the Bank of Canada, has commented on this. Let's hear what he had to say.
The communique highlights that we are pleased to see that uncertainty has come down, but we clearly have more work to do. And I think there was a clear message in the communique that we are committed to continuing to reduce that uncertainty, and that includes around trade and tariff.
The finance ministers and central bank governors from the world's 7 leading advanced economies wrapped up their discussions in Banff, Canada, with a focus on restoring stability in global trade despite concerns over U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs, which have created economic turbulence. The G7 presented a unified front. The group acknowledged the decline in economic policy uncertainty, but also highlighted concerns over unsustainable global macro imbalances. G7 finance ministers agreed to maximum pressure on Russia if it resists a ceasefire in Ukraine, with further sanctions possible. EU economy chief Valdis Dombrovskis has commented. Let's listen in.
It looks like indeed a successful G7 meeting, and the mood in the meetings was positive and constructive, and we are able to make progress on many issues, both concerning the global economy, addressing imbalances, but also as regards, for example, Russia's aggression against Ukraine and our response. So all in all, we are making good progress.
Diplomatic efforts to end the Ukraine conflict have intensified, with Russian and Ukrainian officials meeting for face-to-face talks in Istanbul last week. However, the Kremlin has disputed reports suggesting that new peace talks with Ukraine would soon take place in the Vatican. And lastly, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt has announced that President Donald Trump will attend the G7 Leaders Summit in Canada from June 15th to 17th. Now we move on to Asia. A multi-party delegation led by Kanimozi Karunanindi landed in Moscow to begin a 5-nation tour on cross-border terrorism at the Domodedovo International Airport. Ms. Karunanindi and members of her team were received by Indian Ambassador Vinay Kumar and other officials. The 8-member delegation includes SP MP Rajiv Rai, NC MP Mian Altaf Ahmed, and BJP MP Captain Brijesh Chota, AAP MP Ashok Kumar Mittal, Ambassador Manjeev S. Puri, and Ambassador Javed Ashraf. The visits follows the Pahalgam terror attack on April 22nd, which has left 26 civilians dead. India responded with Operation Sindoor, a major military strike on terror camps. The team will meet Russian lawmakers and officials before traveling to Slovenia, Greece, Latvia, and Spain. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi declared a new normal, saying any cross-border terror act would now be treated as an act of war. Meanwhile, Indian External Affairs Minister Subrahmanyam Jaishankar is visiting Germany, Denmark, and the Netherlands, pushing India's zero-tolerance stand on terrorism. Let's listen in to what he has said in his latest interview in Denmark.
Because again, when we look at big global challenges, I think I would put terrorism right up there as one of the key challenges. It will affect the entire world. And we've had to grapple with a very serious terrorist attack in April. And what followed was a consequence of that, because the terrorists were based in a neighboring country and, you know, were operating with impunity and with a high degree of state protection and support. We had the conflict for a few days that you spoke about. Now, we resolved that conflict for the moment in its particular military form through agreement and understanding for a cessation of firing and military action. And this was something that we negotiated directly between the militaries of the two countries. The trigger for it was that after we had fighting for a few days, we hit them very hard on a particular morning, the morning of the 10th to be precise, and that caused the Pakistanis to say, okay, we're prepared to stop the firing and, reach an understanding about how to deal with it. So I just want to, get that part of it across to you.
He chaired a European envoy conference in Berlin and said India will act if terror attacks continue from Pakistan. Operation Sindoor, launched on May 7th, destroyed terror hubs in Pakistan and POK, killing over 100 terrorists. India also damaged 11 Pakistani air bases, hitting radars, airstrips, and communications. A ceasefire was announced on May 10th, but tensions remain high. Indian PM Modi has dubbed Operation Sindoor a fierce expression of a capable India. Now we stay in Asia. The Philippines has condemned the Chinese Coast Guard for using a water cannon on a Philippine research vessel in the South China Sea. The incident occurred near Sandy Cay, a disputed area. Manila says the action endangers the lives of crew members and damaged the vessel. China, however, claims the Philippine ships entered its waters illegally and landed on the reef without permission. Beijing insists its Coast Guard acted by the law, calling their actions necessary to protect sovereignty. The Philippines' allies have expressed concern, urging respect for international law and regional stability. In the ongoing trial of Sean Diddy Combs rapper Scott Kidcudi, Kidcudi testified on Thursday about a violent confrontation in 2011 that he claims was part of a broader pattern of abuse. The hip-hop mogul is facing charges including racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking stemming from a 20-year scheme to coerce women into taking part in drug-fueled sex parties. Kidcudi, testifying as a prosecution witness, described how Combs allegedly broke into his home after discovering Kidcudi was dating his then-girlfriend Cassandra Ventura. The rapper recalled receiving a call from Ventura in December 2011 telling him Combs has found out about their relationship and asked him to pick her up. Combs, who has pleaded not guilty to all charges, faces up to life in prison if convicted on all counts. Now we stay in Asia. Muhammad Yunus, the head of Bangladesh's interim government, has threatened to resign unless he receives full support from all political parties. His bold ultimatum comes just a day after Army Chief General Waqar Ruzzaman called for elections to be held by December, and the Bangladesh Nationalist Party demanded a clear roadmap for the polls. Yunus' resignation talk is widely being seen as a strategic move to stir unrest in Dhaka, particularly against the army chief's push for elections. The growing buzz around Yunus's potential resignation is being viewed as a prelude to fresh agitation aimed at undermining the military's call for a democratic transition. Should elections take place, they would bring an end to Yunus's de facto prime ministership, which has been marked by controversial decisions and actions that have polarized the nation. Now we move on to Africa. South Sudan's President Salva Kiir has promoted Benjamin Bol-mel, widely seen as his likely successor, to deputy chairman of the ruling Sudan People's Liberation Movement. Bol-mel, who was placed on a U.S. sanctions list in 2017 for corruption, is believed by many in South Sudan to be Kiir's chosen heir amid ongoing rumors about the president's health. The country, the world's youngest, is still recovering from a devastating civil war that killed around 400,000 people after its 2011 independence. Kiir has been sidelining rivals and delaying elections. Bol-mel, possibly married to one of Kiir's daughters, acknowledged his new role during a swearing ceremony in Juba. Analysts and diplomats view this move as positioning Bol-mel to potentially take over the presidency in the near future. Let's listen in to President of South Sudan, Salva Kiir.
For our new duties, I say this to them. Your appointment is not a reward. It is a responsibility. You have been given yourself not to rule.
I accept this assignment not as a personal honor, but as a solemn call to duty. I pledge to serve with loyalty, discipline, and full commitment to your leadership, through which the SPLM has evolved and continues to prevail as the driving force in South Sudan's political landscape.
South Korea's defense ministry said today that no discussions have taken place with Washington about withdrawing U.S. troops, dismissing a Wall Street Journal report suggesting the U.S. may pull 4,500 troops from the country. The report claimed the Pentagon is considering relocating forces to other Indo-Pacific areas, including Guam. Currently, 28,500 American troops are stationed in South Korea. Seoul reaffirmed its commitment to maintaining a strong joint defense posture with the U.S. to deter North Korea. While the allies agreed on a 5-year cost-sharing deal last year, President Trump has hinted that U.S. troop costs could become part of trade negotiations. The statement comes as South Korea prepares for a June 3rd snap presidential election amid ongoing political instability. Now we move on to Australia. The body of a man was found in a car trapped in floodwater near Coffs Harbour, southeastern Australia, raising the death toll to 4 amid severe flooding in southeast Australia. 3 days of relentless rain have cut off entire towns, swept away livestock, and destroyed homes. Around 50,000 people remain isolated, with authorities warning returning residents to be aware of contaminated water, vermin, snakes, and live electricity. A person remains missing since the deluge began. Videos show submerged roads and cars in the Hunter and Mid-North Coast regions of New South Wales. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese was forced to cancel a visit to flood-hit Tari and assured affected communities they are not alone. Experts link the intensifying floods to climate change, with extreme weather events increasingly frequent since 2021. In Sydney, the storm disrupted trains and flights, shutting down 2 airport runways temporarily. Warragamba Dam at 96% capacity may spill, heightening flood risks further. Haitian ministers made an urgent plea for international security support at a meeting of the Organization of the American States on Thursday, as armed gangs continue to take control of the country. The U.S. has announced it will stop funding efforts aimed at stopping the gangs. These powerful gangs, armed with weapons trafficked from the U.S. and the Dominican Republic, have taken over much of the capital and are spreading across the country, displacing over 1 million people. A few countries have pledged troops for peacekeeping mission, but only a small number have been deployed. The Kenyan-led force, which is underfunded, has struggled to stop the gangs' advances. Haitian Defense Minister Jean-Michel Moise said the gangs are fueled by profits from cocaine and arms trafficking. He warned that Haiti is on the brink of being fully controlled by criminal gangs and urgently needs international help. Here is what the deputy spokesperson for the Secretary General from UN had to say.
From Haiti, our colleagues at the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs warn that the recent wave of armed violence in the Center Department is putting thousands of children at risk. Since mid-April, more than 50,000 people have been displaced, including an estimated 15,000 children. Most displaced families have taken shelter in rural areas or in temporary sites with little access to essential services.
Kingdom that has agreed to transfer sovereignty of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius while retaining control over the Diego Garcia military base for 99 years. This strategic base, jointly operated with the United States, plays a crucial role in regional and global security. The deal includes a 101 million euros annual payment to Mauritius, totaling 3.4 billion euros over the lease period. The agreement aims to resolve long-standing territorial disputes and secure the future of the military facility. The United States has welcomed the deal, emphasizing its importance for maintaining a strong defense posture in the Indian Ocean region. The agreement has been met with support from various international partners, including India, which views the resolution as a step towards completing the decolonization process for Mauritius. However, the deal has faced criticism from some quarters, particularly concerning the rights of the displaced Chagosian people and the strategic implications of the arrangement. Let's listen in to what UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has said.
A few moments ago, I signed a deal to secure the joint UK-US base on Diego Garcia. This is absolutely vital for our defence and intelligence, and therefore for the safety and security of the British people. The full assessment of why this is so important is highly classified, but I want to speak as frankly as I can. The strategic location of this base is of the utmost significance to Britain, from deploying aircraft to defeat terrorists in Iraq and Afghanistan, to anticipating threats in the Red Sea and the Indo-Pacific. The base is right at the foundation of our security and safety at home.
In a